Hi, it's Gil Robles, and it's Friday, so that means I'm posting a new video on YouTube. And this video this week is going to be titled Why the 100 Drawings Challenge Might Not Work. And it's a very popular challenge that's out there. I've heard it since high school, actually. It's not really new. I've had that challenge where I've had instructors tell me, if you do X amount of drawing, and I kind of remembered that amount being more than 100, but 100 is fine. But if you do X amount of drawings, if you do 100 drawings, by the time you got to your 101 drawing, you would have improved so greatly. You just have so many bad drawings that you got to get out the way. And in actuality, it's a great challenge. In truth, you do have so many bad drawings to get out the way. Sometimes those bad drawings will come out way after that 101 drawing. Even after you've had some accomplishments because there are always new challenges. But getting back to that 100 drawing challenge, it's a good challenge. However, it might not be a good challenge if you are rushing through your drawings. And that's a big thing. Now, first of all, before I go on, I'm painting in SketchBook Pro. No, SketchBook, I'm sorry, because I've updated SketchBook finally, and I decided that it's important for me to stay current with the software in order to put up these videos on YouTube. So I've got the subscription version, and I'm just getting into it. And I'm just getting used to the brushes that are here. I haven't even made my own brushes yet. I'm busy exploring the brushes that they have. So I've chose some brushes and put it on my brushes palette. It seems like these are going to be fun to explore and use. I've also went ahead and created some color charts here on the colors palette where I might not stick to it, but they're a good place for me to start. So I have some warm and some cool colors and some gradations of those colors that I had put up there so that I can easily use the color picker to go back and forth. So in the future, I'll go over the things I'm learning about this newer version of Sketchbook. In the meantime, I'm going through this and I'm painting this painting as I normally would any painting, whether it's traditional or digital. For some reason, I'm trying to stay away from that undo, which everybody seems to have a problem with, especially if you're coming from a traditional background. But to me, it's the same as using an eraser or using whiteout. I don't see the big deal. It still depends on how well you can draw and paint. And like I said, I'm starting this painting in the same way that I would start an oil painting, and I'm working on it in the same way. Now, I'm using a different medium, so there's going to be different ways that I'm going to finish this up, but that's the same thing as, say, if you use watercolor and you decide to use oil, it's a different medium, you're going to use it in a different way. It's a different challenge, the same thing with pastel or whatever. So, anyway, that that aside, it's a sketchbook. I'll keep up with the software, back to the 100 drawing challenge, and back to keeping away from mediocrity, because that is the thing. That is the thing that makes challenges like the 100 drawing challenge so important. And one of the things that I find that makes the challenge ineffective is the way that I see online people are taking the challenge. I've seen people fill up sketchbooks with drawings that they rush through, and a lot of them are similar drawings. I've seen one where someone just drew hands, and one hand after the other looked the same. I didn't even see the person using erasers. Some people don't believe in using an eraser. I believe in using erasers. Okay. I believe if you work digitally, you believe in the undo. You use so many different ways to manipulate your image that, yes, it does count to, I mean, you do use an eraser. So the thing about it is that I've seen people work on their drawings and zip through them. And the drawing shouldn't be that. A drawing should be a struggle. A drawing should be a struggle to get beyond what you already know. A drawing should be a struggle to make it, if you're drawing a hand, to draw that hand correctly. A drawing should be a struggle that, say, if you have a problem drawing a hand in perspective, draw the hand in perspective and draw it correctly. Don't zip through it, because what happens if you're just filling pages, by the time you get to that 101 drawing, it may or may not be better, but you know what, you're nowhere near. You just skipped. Instead of sprinting, or instead of running, or instead of going that extra yard, you just skipped. So you're just a few inches away from where you were before, and then it really doesn't count for much, because you didn't fight to get beyond yourself. You didn't fight to get beyond mediocrity. There's one of the things that I've learned from high school. I had a great high school teacher. I went to the High School of Art and Design, and there were great teachers there. One of them was a teacher named Erwin Greenberg. Now, there's so many quotes from Mr. Greenberg, or Greenie as we called him, that I can tell you, and I can go on and on about the different things that he said, because he used to, kind of like in between breaks for the model, we painted and drew from a model from life, and in between those breaks, he would teach us something about art history, and he would tell us a story and so forth. And one of the things that I remember him saying is, look, you know what? One good drawing is worth 100 bad ones. And that's kind of the reverse of the 100 challenge. Because instead of drawing 100 bad drawings, or 100 drawings where you zip through it to get to that 101, that one drawing at a time, done with struggle, done with sweat, done with an eraser, and done to the point where you burned a hole through the paper, that one drawing you would have learned something from, and it would have been worth more than those 100 drawings that you just kind of just flew through to get to that last one. Look, life is going to be a struggle against mediocrity. If you ever wondered, like if you think about the artists in art history, artists like Rembrandt or Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo or Raphael, you can go down the list of the great masters. How hard did they struggle? You can get it from a quote by Michelangelo. Michelangelo is quoted to have said, "If people knew how hard I worked to get my mastery, it wouldn't be so wonderful at all." Now, this is a quote from a man who was called in his lifetime the Divine One. Divine because he worked as a painter, he worked as a sculptor, he was a poet, he was an architect, he was an engineer. He was the definition of a Renaissance man. He had so many different talents. He was so intelligent. People looked at him as saying that there's no way that he's just human like the rest of us. He had to have been divine, so he was nicknamed the Divine One. Now, but that aside, it was all hard work. It was all that, if people knew how hard it was that I worked at this to get at the finished product, to get to the finish line, they wouldn't have thought it was so wonderful. It would have just made sense. It would have made sense that, if you work this hard, you're going to see results. And not that everything he did, was a masterpiece. not even Michelangelo or Rembrandt. They struggled with their work as well. But they struggled, which is the main thing. They struggled, and they fought for 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 um for their mastery. They fought for being able to put those works out in the world and show themselves to be true masters, not because they're talented, but because they work hard. And that's what it means. I mean, you know what, if you think somebody, and I don't want to tell too many stories, and believe me, I have a lot of them, and it's good to have these stories and to keep in mind, because it gives you an idea when you do struggle, you're not alone. There's Norman Rockwell. Norman Rockwell was known as America's favorite artist, illustrator, or whatever. A terrific illustrator, terrific artist. There have been books written about his methods. You can find it online. There's the famous artist series. If you can find old copies of it, I'm sure there's some online. There's also a book that I have it's out of print, called Rockwell on Rockwell. If you can ever find that, that's a great book, and he shows you from the famous artist course how he goes from beginning to finish of putting a painting together. He had a very rigid approach, and by rigid I don't mean anything negative by that, but he had a way of developing his work to make sure that the end product would be the best that he can do. He went from the idea, he spent time coming up with the idea. He went from that idea to, once he got it approved, to drawing a very careful, rendered, beautiful charcoal drawing. He went from that charcoal drawing to putting the picture together in a color sketch, and a comprehensive color sketch where he shows the color scheme for the entire painting. And he went from there to doing individual studies of the different characters in the painting, and that was his way of working. Then went to the final thing. But one of the paintings that he is well known for was called Saying Grace, where you see an older woman sitting down with a little boy in a restaurant, and they are saying grace. They're praying over their food. And you see all these gruff characters in the restaurant, some of them reading their paper, some of them, going about the restaurant, however, and looking at them saying grace. And it's one of his most popular, favored by many people, paintings. And the thing about this painting is that it came with struggle. At one point, Rockwell was so frustrated by the painting that he got up, grabbed the painting, and threw it out of his studio. It was snowing at that time, so there was a bank of snow. So he threw the painting out in the snow and walked back in his studio. And after a while, he came back out to get the painting. I guess he realized that, there's a deadline he has to meet. It has to be done for the post, and he whatever it is, he didn't give up on it. And that's how drawings should be approached. Drawings or paintings or whatever. But specifically the challenge. It shouldn't be things that you sip through, that you zip through, and that you don't give a care as to how well the drawing is. That you're not just trying to fill up your sketchbook, but you struggle through it. You fight for it. You make it. You meet the challenge. You don't settle for yourself at your most mediocre, and that's a danger. Mediocrity is a danger. At any point, you can work to a certain level, feel satisfied, and become mediocre, or work to a point, and life becomes a challenge, and you all of a sudden you're not working as much as you used to, or whatever, and then you kind of fall back. and then getting back into your work becomes a struggle. That has happened to me. That has happened to many people that I've known. I'm 54 now. So I think maybe 20 years ago, more or less, I had decided that I really didn't, I really, life has become such a struggle meeting the demands of life or whatever that, you know what, I don't have time to paint. But I couldn't stay away from it for too long. That was what I was passionate about really at one point in my life, and for some reason at that point in life, we all go through things where we get frustrated. I have other friends who had similar stories, not alone in this. Okay, but you come back to it, and you know what? It became a struggle, not really to get back to a point of where I was. That's not so much going backward, but going backward is not the thing. It's always where you want to be. You have to have something to look forward to. So I got right back into the struggle. I got right back into it. I got right back into drawing and painting and realizing that I need to do this daily. That I need to, if I maintain a blog called Art in a Busy World, and I'll leave a link below. I'll also leave links to whatever it is I'm using, or where I can leave a link to it. I think it's important to share. Some people ask me, what tablet do you use, and so forth. I'll leave that below. So the thing about it is that you know I've struggled before, and you come through. I've had friends who's come through things in life and stuff, but you want to look forward to where you want to be with your art. And like I said before, I had my blog. I'll leave a link below, that you can look at the things that I've done in the past since I started that blog at a point where I started to get back into painting. Where I started get and sometimes I'm afraid to look at the first things I've done, because I look at it and I say, gosh, that's awful. But it's okay. I don't take it off of there, because I realize that it's part of the struggle. It's part of coming from a point where I needed to grow to the point where I am now, which, you know what, I still got the rest of my life to go through to get better. So I'm still struggling, but I'm struggling at a different point than I was back then. And it's okay to look at your, like I mentioned in the earlier video, that I'm my own toughest critic, that I think it's important for an artist to be their own toughest critic, to look at your work long before anybody has anything to say about it. You have the most constructive view of where your art needs to go. So it's important for you to develop that attitude where you will be your toughest critic. Some people are too polite to be your toughest critic. Some artists don't want to hear it, but it's important in order for you to grow to be your toughest critic. It's also important, or it's also okay to look at your work and honestly say, you know what, this is the best that I could have done. This is the best that I've done, and this is the best that I could have done with what I knew. And it's okay. I've done paintings. I've done illustrations. I do illustrations, and they're more than this that I show on YouTube, because an illustration involves so much more. I have a concrete background. The last illustration I did was of a teenager in his messy room, looking over his room with a finished background, a lot of objects, a lot of stuff around: basketballs, soccer balls, baseball equipment, comic books, and all that stuff. It was fun to do. And I realized that painting, or that illustration, was the best thing that I've done to that point as far as illustration is concerned. And again, there are paintings that I've done that are not digital, that are traditional, that I felt the same way about. But what happens is that after a while, I've I look at the painting and I say, you know what? There's so many things that I could have done better, and that's okay too. I'm not saying that with the idea that or trying to give the idea that I felt down about the painting. On quite the opposite. I still was pretty satisfied of the fact that, you know what, that was the best thing that I could have done till then. And I'm so glad that I did that, and I'm so glad that I see that I can improve upon that, because I would not have been able to look and see what I could have improved upon if I did not struggle to make that the best thing that I could have done at the time. You see, you reach a certain plateau, you've reached a certain level, then you're able to see beyond what, you're able to see beyond that level to your new challenge where you can grow and get better. And there's no way of telling what that is until you get past that challenge. I've said that. I've said something similar, and I've had somebody ask me, well, what are the struggles that are down the line? And I said, you know what, that really depends on you. That really depends on how honest you are with what you're doing in front of you right now. And once you get through with that, to the best of your ability, you'll be able to see beyond that. But you have to be able to get through whatever challenge you have in front of you right now to get beyond that. And those challenges, could be technical. The challenges could be something more than that. The challenge could be making your drawings or paintings more interesting. Why are you painting what you're painting? I've heard a landscape painter talk about, you know, he's talking, a teacher talking to a student, where he said, I want you to do more than just paint a tree. I want you to tell me within your painting what makes this tree important to you, and what makes it different to you. Why did you want to paint it? What makes it interesting to you? Now, I'm paraphrasing. That comes from a book, and I'll leave a link to it, by Robert Henry. And he didn't really write the book. What it is that he was an American painter who studied in Paris, and he came and taught here, I believe at the Art Students League. And he was such an inspiring teacher that his students put together the notes that he had written. And I hope that doesn't come out on this video, but it might, as a... Oh, it stopped. Okay, there's a car beeping outside. But anyway, Robert Henry's students put together this book, which has been in print ever since. He was from like the 1800s or early 1900s, and this book called The Art Spirit. I'll look it up and leave a link. It is a great book. I highly recommend it. No pictures, full of inspiring words that he told his students about painting, about being an artist, about living as an artist, about just about thinking like an artist. Great book. I've known that book since high school. Very inspirational. I would keep it around as religious people keep their Bibles. If you're an artist, you need to read that book. Okay, but again, that could be one of the struggles, is just putting or translating in the work what makes the subject interesting to you. It could be a technical thing as far as drawing a hand in perspective, drawing a head in different positions or directions or whatever, drawing a head from any angle was what I was trying to say. It could be a number of things. You could learn those things here on YouTube, but you can only learn so much by watching the video you got to do. So it could be a number of things, but getting through those struggles, you get to see, once you get through them, once you overcome them, you get to see what is beyond them, and go on to your next struggle. Okay. So it's a lifelong thing. That's the thing I want to communicate. It's a lifelong thing. And if I could, I would give you another quote. Now, I'm like I said before, and I'm saying it again. I will leave a link to my blog where I'm going to put these quotes down that I've read, and maybe a few more. But there's an artist by the name of Hokusai. He's a Japanese artist. He Japanese manga artist, and back then, in the time he lived, manga was not comic books. He was his sketchbooks that he had put out, and he's known, famous for this print, this woodblock print called the Wave, and he was also these views of Mount Fuji. And Hokusai was very much an artist who worked against mediocrity in his own work. And this is a great quote from him that my teacher Greenie used to read to us in class. It says, "From the age of 6, I had a mania for drawing the shapes of things. When I was 50, I had published a universe of designs, but all I have done before the age of 70 is not worth bothering with. At 75, I'll have learned something of the pattern of nature, of animals, of plants, of trees, birds, fish, and insects. When I am 80, you will see real progress. At 90, I shall have cut my way deeply into the mystery of life itself. At 100, I shall be a marvelous artist. At 110, everything I create, a dot, a line, will jump to life as never before. To all who are going to live as long as I do, I promise to keep my word. I am writing you this in my old age. I used to call myself Hokusai, but today I sign myself the old man mad about drawing." Now, he had to have been beyond 70, because he said before 70, it wasn't worth anything. At 75 is when you'll see improvement. It's a lifelong commitment. Thank you for listening. I hope that this video was informative. If it helped, please consider subscribing. There will be more every Friday. Again, there will be links on the bottom. And you know what? Next week, I'll probably do something different. Like in view of Inktober coming, I will do something that has something more to do with that. Probably something in a more traditional medium rather than digital, since that's what Inktober involves. So thank you. Thank you for watching. Hope you got something out of this. Please let me know. Make comments below. I love looking at the comments. Try to get to every one of them. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.